The honourable member for Lambton, Kent, Middlesex.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and indeed an honour and a pleasure for me to illustrate to this House our support, not only mine but certainly our party's support for Bill C-18, the Agriculture Growth Act. First, Mr. Speaker, let me express not only my appreciation but the farmers in Lambton, Kent, Middlesex, and I believe the large majority across Canada, to the Minister of Agriculture with his foresight and action to bring this bill forward, and the work that the Parliamentary Secretary next to me has done to get it to the committee. And I also want to thank the committee. The committee has worked hard to get this to a form in which it is in today so that we can move the industry of agriculture forward. You know what? I think at one time or another, all of us have read the sign, if you ate today, thank a farmer. In fact, I have a few of those in my office. I have one that surrounds actually a license plate on one of my vehicles. That's an important sign. It's an important sign as a consumer and as a farmer, as a dairy farmer and a cash cropper. It raises the importance of not only what agriculture is, but the importance of food. But as parliamentarians, Mr. Speaker, I believe we need to do more than talk. We need to express more than just saying thanks. And I need to ensure that farmers in the industry as a whole, they have the support of this effective legislation. Before I focus on the main element of the bill, I would like to address the amendments that have been proposed by the opposition members. They have been a combined, if you can imagine, Mr. Speaker, 56 amendments.
Crazy.
Put on the order paper that in fact would meet their objective to gut the bill and take away all of its effectiveness. Mr. Speaker, I won't, our party won't, we will not be able to support those types of motions. In fact, I urge everyone with the legal head on their shoulders not to support it and to move forward in adopting this great bill. In fact, what it would do, should we start to approve that, the gutting of it, would turn the clock back on agriculture about 25 years. We're not prepared for that, and I believe the country is not prepared for that. So Bill 18 proposes broad controls to ensure the safety of Canada's agriculture inputs, allowing the license and registration of fertilizer and animal feed operators and facilities that import and sell products across provincial and international borders. That's, of course, in addition to the current system, which registers feed and fertilizer now individually, product by product. But licensing and registering facilities and operators is a more effective and timely method for verifying that agriculture products meet and surpass, in many cases, Canada's stringent safety rules and other standards. It's also, Mr. Speaker, is important because what we need to always make sure that we do is we align ourselves with our major trading partners to help that our feed and seed and fertilizer industries maintain access to those markets, and especially with our closest neighbor, the United States. But being able to maintain those access, just for your information, means that exports in the agriculture industry can mean up to 85% of what we grow. That's an incredible high number, Mr. Speaker, and what it actually means is that 1 in 8 jobs in this country are related to agriculture and the agriculture industry. So the Agriculture Growth Act proposes to keep these jobs safe and secure. And they can only do this, Mr. Speaker, by modernizing our current and antiquated legislation and also by improving Canadian access to the latest farming technology. Mr. Speaker, exports are a part of the solution. But, Mr. Speaker, and what we grow here is just the other part. You may recall that during the last Parliament, Motion 460 was debated in this House, and it read that in the opinion of the House, the government should ensure that production management tools available to Canadian farmers are similar to those of other national jurisdictions by considering equivalent scientific research and agriculture regulatory approval processes by Health Canada, by the Pest Regulatory Management Regulatory Agency, and of course by the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. Mr. Speaker, when I put that motion forward, I put it forward and it was adopted by the House. Unfortunately, I was glad that it was adopted, but it didn't get a help from the NDP party, which I find strange. It's clear that they don't support the idea. But you know who does support it? Farmers. And who is fulfilling the promise to farmers? Our Conservative government, Mr. Speaker. During the 2011 federal election, Conservative Party platform said, like other business people, Canadian farmers want access to the latest innovations to succeed in the global economy. Unfortunately, there's long and burdensome approval processes imposed by the federal government are preventing Canadian farmers from obtaining the best fertilizer, pesticides, veterinary drugs available on the market. We will revise current approval processes to allow for international equivalencies of such products. We will eliminate needless duplication. We will be protecting our national sovereignty and maintaining highest safety standards. Well, Mr. Speaker, and what did the stakeholders tell us about this during the committee, Mr. Speaker? Well, the President and CEO of the Canadian Association of Agriculture Retailers, for example, in October 2014, allowing the CFA the opportunity to use data that is sourced externally to Canada, not having to be reproduced, and to use data that is from a country that is considered to be equivalent to the standards of Canada is, I think, a significant improvement in the terms of allowing the CFIA the freedom to operate and reducing the administrative burden of recreating the data that would already be acceptable in terms of identifying the safety and ability of the use to use the product in Canada. Mr. Speaker, our bill does this. Indeed, we have such strong belief in this idea that sections 57, 67, 77, and 96 of C-18, the Agriculture Growth Act, implement this idea. The amendments proposed in Bill C-18 will provide the CFA with stronger tools to fulfill its mandate to protect Canada's plant and animal resource base. The changes will provide additional reassurance that imported agriculture products meet the Canadian requirements. Those are strict requirements, Mr. Speaker. Bill C-18 is part of our government's strong agriculture agenda, and I'm not alone in seeing Bill C-18 as a key milestone for Canada's agriculture sector. Grain Growers of Canada, Seed Trade Alliance of Canada, Canadian Horticulture Council. Oh, Mr. Speaker, these are only a few of the many agriculture organizations anxiously waiting for the proposed legislation. New, stronger border controls for agriculture products are urgently needed. C-18 responds to that. It will give inspectors from CFIA the authority to have imported shipments of feeds, fertilizers, and seeds that do not meet requirements. Those are legal requirements, Mr. Speaker, ordered out of Canada. That would be similar to the current treatment of imported plants and animals that do not meet those requirements now. Canadian farmers will benefit because they would be competing on a level playing field with the international counterparts. That is so important because Canadian consumers would benefit from a strengthened food safety regime. So, Mr. Speaker, as I wrap up, to be clear, CFIA already takes action to seize illegal animal feeds, seeds, fertilizer, and related products. Bill C-18, however, proposes to update that as we do this. In some cases, under the current process, seizure of illegal products is followed by a lengthy and costly court proceedings, and at that time, Canada must pay to dispose of those illegal products. So you can see that being able to order the products out of the country becomes a much more efficient and a much more practical procedure. At the same time, Bill C-18 would give CFIA inspectors giving the inspectors the ability to allow the importer to fix the problem at the border, and if there's no safety concerns, and if the inspector can be certain that the issues will be addressed. So, Mr. Speaker, it's an honor and a privilege for me to make this presentation on behalf of our government on C-18, and I look forward to addressing any of the questions or comments that may come forward. Thank you very much.
Question commentaire. The honourable member for Welland.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And I want to thank my honourable colleague, the chair of the Agriculture Committee, for his comments. And let me just put on the record, and I believe I might have said it the other night, but I'll say it again on the record today, that I thought he chaired admirably when we actually looked at C-18. I thought there was a good balance of witnesses. It's his ability to chair is one thing. My ability to try to convince the other side to accept amendments is my responsibility to do. And I have to admit that I wasn't quite as successful as I'd hoped. Well, quite frankly, in baseball parlance, it's called an offer. In other words, 16 up and 16 out. And so that happens in life, Mr. Speaker. But clearly what we did and what the chair actually asked us to do was to study it in a professional manner, and we did that. Provided some very professional pieces that we thought were amendments to bring forward. But where I take a slight bit of issue with the chair is when he says these amendments that take out UPOV 91 out of this particular bill that are before us now would leave us, eons back in time. Well, that's not quite true. We go back to UPOV 78, which we have today. So everyone is regulated under UPOV 78 today. They've been fairly successful, and I would suggest to the chair, respectfully so, that farmers in this country have done very well. And so should they. They've worked extremely hard. So as much as it doesn't actually get to UPOV 91 if we take it out, UPOV 78 would be there. So I think the chair overstates perhaps, and I recognize in this House sometimes we all stretch a bit, because clearly we still would have a UPOV agreement. It just would be UPOV 78.
Honourable member for Lambton, Kent, Middlesex.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and again, that's a great thing about how this bill has come forward, and I want to say, as chair of the committee, my appreciation very much to all the members of all parties, and how this was addressed, and how we move forward on the bill. Certainly, were there amendments? There were, and as I mentioned before, those amendments that came forward were very much to take away from what this bill's objective was and what the farmers in Canada were telling us. I want to, and to my colleague in terms of UPOV 78, that's my point. It's 25 years ago. Agriculture is not about 25 years ago. Agriculture is about now and looking forward, maybe 25 years, not going back 25 years. And so all of our trading partners are involved with UPOV 91. All of the industry people just about that came and talked to us all said we need to move forward for the protection of agriculture and its sustainability.
Questions and comments. The honourable member for Sydney, Victoria.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I got to agree with my colleague from the NDP that the member is doing an adequate job on the Agriculture Committee. But no, he's no, seriously, he's doing a great job, and sometimes it's difficult when you're with government and you're in the chair and you're supposed to be fair to all. But there was one thing though during the many presentations, especially from the organic farmers, small farmers, there is a concern there. There's a concern that there's not a lot in this bill for them, and there is a concern that some of their rights will be taken away. And I'm hoping that that's not going to be the case here. But on that point, my two questions to the chair would be: does he see that we have listened to those small farmers that came forward, number one, and does he see the merit in this committee just trying to help these smaller growers that are really are a big part of the increase of agriculture in Canada? In the upcoming committee business, to sit down and take serious their concerns and how we can help them grow, move forward, and be a big part of our production in Canada.
Member for Lambton, Kent, Middlesex. We have
Thank
1 minute
you, Mr.
remaining.
Speaker, and actually, I want to thank the member for asking it, because it is a great question, and it's one thing about it, he's been consistent in his questioning. And so how does this help small farmers? Actually, the whole issue around UPOV 91 is being able to allow seed to come in from other countries to be used and be protected in Canada. One of the things about Canada is that it is very big in geography, very small in numbers. And one of the things that we have, and it was part of what my bill M460 was about, is that we need to make sure we align ourselves with countries that have the same standards as us, so that when we bring in those seeds, which will help the small breeders, because we always don't have that breeding in Canada. But they will now, whether it's horticulture or small farmers or organic that have special seeds in many ways, they now will have the opportunity to bring those seeds in from other countries that have the same high standards that we do.